Floyd, this is an amazing place, and I've been dying to come here ever since I read Tom Shaw's article in Muscle Car Review. Tell me how the whole museum got started.
Well, it was back years ago when I was in high school. I developed a love for cars by servicing them all the time. And all I wanted to do, I didn't want to get an education. I wanted to get out of school and get me a Bel Air two-door hardtop. And that's the kind of way it started.
And go burn up them streets.
This is true.
Now, you're originally from Florida, though, right?
From North Florida, right above Jacksonville, where I was born and raised in the same county until I moved up here to Sevierville.
Well, now how'd you pick Sevierville, then, for the site of the museum?
Because of all the car shows that they have up here and all the gearheads that come to this area, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, so am I. Hotbed for gearheads.
Yes.
And how many cars do you have here?
We presently have 93 cars now, and we're working towards trying to put at least 100 in here.
Well, you got a lot of horsepower in here. You ever figure out how much horsepower you got?
Yes, I totaled it up one time for an individual who wanted to know, and it was 30-some thousand horsepower in here. And a customer come in and said there's enough horsepower in here to pull the state of Tennessee out of the Union.
Well, hey, Floyd, I'm chomping at the bit to look at some of these babies. So what do you say we just take a look around?
Let's go.
All right. Floyd, you got so many beautiful cars here. And whoa, this is a favorite of mine, a 64 Thunderbolt.
Yes, this is Ford's super stock car that they built especially for competition in 1964.
Now, these things are known as lightweights. Tell me what a lightweight is.
Well, they come with fiberglass hood, fiberglass fenders, aluminum bumpers, Econoline bucket seats, rubber mat instead of carpet in the cars, and Lexan glass.
But under the hood?
Yes. We got a 427 cubic inch FE Ford motor with 2 Holley 4-barrels.
Pumping out what kind of horsepower?
They is rated at 425 horsepower.
And I love this induction system. It was just ramming that air right in there, and I guess you didn't need both lights on the strip.
Right. This cold air makes more horsepower.
Yeah, and this was built for the strip.
Yes, it was.
But some of them found their way to the street.
Yeah, you had the Dennis Gages on the street every once in a while.
There are a few of them around, yeah.
Yes.
Well, in addition to all those great muscle cars, you got quite a collection of classic stock cars, too.
Yes, this is the '69 Talladega that David Pearson won the 125-mile qualifying races in 1969 with.
But now, Floyd, this one was kind of interesting. Caught my eye earlier. It's got some stories behind it.
Yes, it has. This is Smokey Unique out of Daytona Beach built this car. He had some own ideas of what he called cheating the air. He put a little old lip here at the rear for downforce. He had jacking screws where you could get to them from outside the car instead of inside the car. He eliminated the door handles for wind resistance, and he took the body and lowered down in the frame to get a belly pan under it to keep from lift and aerodynamics on the car.
He referred to that as what? Cheating the air?
Cheating the air.
But now the engine is what?
408 cubic inches.
And why didn't he run a 427?
He felt like that he didn't need it because he felt like this car was going to run in the neighborhood of 189 to 190 mile an hour in 1968.
But it never ran? Never ran.
NASCAR just didn't like it.
Well, now we're strolling Big Block Boulevard in what feels like Chevrolet USA, Floyd.
Yes, it is.
You got 396s, 454s, 427s, but this Camaro here is pretty special, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is one of 69 built with the all-aluminum 427 block heads and intake manifold.
It's a pretty base car, though, excepting for the engine.
Yes, this car was $2,900 base price, except the engine option put it over $7,000.
Wow, and once you put that engine in it, what kind of horsepower were you looking at?
430 horsepower with 1 Holley 4-barrel.
Well, Floyd, I really thank you for having us here at this muscle car paradise. We've had a great time.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hey, welcome back to My Classic Car and the Race Shop at Floyd Garrett's Muscle Car Museum. Many of you watching are muscle car fans, and walking around here, it's easy to see why. Power and speed is what these cars were all about. And not surprisingly, we get a lot of mail from muscle car enthusiasts. But what has surprised us is the amount of mail we receive asking us to do something, anything about the VW Bug. Yes, Herbie the Love Bug is still alive and well in the hearts of many, including mine.
It's kind of a brotherhood of crazy people.
reason why I got into Volkswagens? Well, our family.
I'm Ron Perkins.
I'm Paul Perkins.
I'm Rick Perkins.
And I'm Mark Perkins.
And we drive Beetles.
You just, I don't know, you get picked, I guess. You get hit by the bug.
All ages love Volkswagens. What else can you say? They're a fun car.
The right question might actually be, what else can't you say when you're talking about the most recognizable car the world has ever known? In fact, if there were one owner for every Volkswagen Beetle ever made, they could form a club with over 22 million members. And with the introduction of the new Beetle, that membership would keep growing every day. With a following that large, there is much to be said about the Beetle. And the best place to start is with a founding member of this, perhaps the world's least exclusive club, Ferdinand Porsche.
Ferdinand Porsche was a great designer. He had always wanted to build a car for the masses of Germany, a car that every individual working person could afford. Later on, he was teamed up with Adolf Hitler, and Hitler said, I would like a car designed and built so it's so economical everyone can afford it.
The partnership was established in mid-1934, and Porsche agreed to have prototypes ready within 10 months. Based on these cars, funding was approved for further development, and in October of 1936, 3 cars were given endurance tests of over 30,000 miles. The cars of this V3 series contain 4-cylinder air-cooled engines.
The car in itself has a very simplistic design, which is why many of the things work on this car simply not because I restored them, but they're very simple in design, from a gas gauge that's a simple mechanical float. Also, it's air-cooled. It's not a water-cooled engine.
Also, during one of Ferdinand Porsche's trips to the U.S., he visited the Ford factory. In fact, Henry Ford was an idol of Ferdinand Porsche's. And while he was here, he saw that the U.S. method of building cars had the hinges at the front, not suicide type as we know it. So he cabled back to change the design of their cars so they would open toward the front.
Adolf Hitler promised the people of Germany many things in his rise to power. Among these promises was the creation of a new town in which the people's car would be built. KDF-Stadt, as the new town would be known, stood for Strength Through Joy. A job in the new factory and low-cost housing would be guaranteed, along with an affordable car. And the name of this car, as Hitler announced in 1938, would be the KDF wagon.
They just thought Hitler was crazy because no one would understand what this KDF wagon meant.
I know the KDF wagon is what he wanted to call it, but they wanted to call it the people's car.
Well, the name itself is a car for the people. The word Volkswagen stands for the people's car.
An article in the New York Times on July 3, 1938 stated, "The Fuhrer is going to plaster his smooth highways with thousands and thousands of shiny little Beetles." It was the first time the name Beetle was used, and as it turned out, would far outlast the title of KDF wagon. World War II, however, would transform the people's car into the military's car. Hitler would see his smooth highways plastered with Allied bombs. In 1945, the factory and town of KDF-Stadt would meet the same fate.
The Volkswagen Factory had been built in 1938-39, so it wasn't on most of the maps. But later on, we did bomb it with a number of bombing runs, and we 2/3 destroyed the factory.
Under British control, Major Ivan Hurst was given the responsibility of salvaging whatever capacity the factory had left. It was under Hurst's direction that Volkswagen would slowly rise from the ashes.
The British were in charge of the factory, but they knew that it would come to an end. They wanted to get a solid person to lead Volkswagen Factory into its rebirth. So they searched around and they found a gentleman by the name of Heinz Nordhoff. He knew they would have to expand their exports and increase their production. And he also got a hold of Ben Pawn, who was the Netherlands importer for Volkswagen. And he said, listen, would you try and take a Beetle over to the U.S.?
The United States, however, would prove a tougher market to crack. Anti-German sentiment still ran high, and Pawn's attempt failed. It wasn't until VW established its own dealer network that the Beetle began to make inroads in America.
So Volkswagen will constantly be changing, improving, and refining this car.
Not necessarily to keep in style with the times, but to make a better car.
In 1949, only 2 Beetles were registered in the States. By 1960, over 190,000 were registered. And this was just the beginning.
Ever wish you didn't have radiator problems? The Volkswagen has no radiator problems. In fact, no radiator. The Volkswagen engine is cooled by air.
To the untrained eye, the Volkswagen Beetle may not seem to have changed much over the years. But to the enthusiast, the evolution is obvious.
The split rear window became a one-piece oval window in March of '53, I believe. In 1958, they went to a larger rear window. It had been a smaller oval window, and they increased it to a rectangle window. For many years, in order to fill up your gas, you had to go out and lift up your hood. And it was about 1968 they finally came out with the external door on the passenger side where you could open it and put gas in.
In 1971, the Super Beetle engines reached a rating of 57 horsepower. The torsion bar suspension was replaced in the early 70s by McPherson struts.
The Model T held the record for many years of production to over 15 million. So it took Volkswagen a number of years to build up to that. So finally in 1972, Volkswagen did pass that milestone and more Beetles were produced in the Model T.
Through the 1970s, sales in the U.S. gradually dropped off, with the last German-made Beetle sedan rolling off the line in 1978. But leave it to the Beetle to rewrite the expectation that all good things must come to an end. How many car designs do you know that would wait almost 60 years for a redesign? Only one. The original Volkswagen Beetle, a car that truly defines the word timeless, and whose popularity, success, and personality will never be equaled again.
Just the distinct little headlights in the front look like little eyes, and the bumper like a little smiley face sort of maybe.
It's just been a great experience. And I'll probably be buried in this thing.
Jeez, glad that's done. I just like to drive it. I don't want to talk about it.